stories of the day. My extract is from the book Matilda, written by Roald Dahl, the reader of books. Nearly every weekday afternoon, Matilda was left alone in her house. Her brother went to school, her father went to work, and her mother went out playing bingo in a town 8 miles away. Matilda set out all by herself to walk to the public library in the village. When she arrived, she introduced herself to the librarian, Mrs. Phelps. Mrs. Phelps, slightly taken back at the arrival of such a tiny girl unaccompanied by a parent. Nevertheless, she told her she was very welcome. "Where are the children's books, please?" Matilda asked. "They are over there on those lower shelves. Shall I help you find one with lots of pictures in it?" "No, thank you. I'm sure I can manage." From then on, as soon as her mother left for bingo, Matilda would toddle down to the library in the village. When she had read every single book in the children's place, she wondered what to read next. Mrs. Phelps, who had been watching her with fascination over the past few weeks, now got up from her desk and went over to her. "Is there anything I can help you with, Matilda?" she said. "I finished all the children's books. I'm wondering what to read next." "You mean you've looked at the pictures?" "Yes, but I've read the books as well. I thought some were very poor, but others were lovely. I like The Secret Garden best of all. The secret of the room behind the door and the secret of the garden behind the wall." Mrs. Phelps was stunned. "Exactly. How old are you, Matilda?" she said. 4 years and 3 months, Matilda replied. Mrs. Phelps was more stunned than ever. "What sort of book would you like to read next, Matilda?" "A nice one. The one which grown-ups read. I don't know any names." "Here, try this. It's the best I could find. If you feel it's too long for you, just let me know. I'll try and find something shorter and easier for you." Great Expectations, Matilda read, by Charles Dickens. "I'd love to try it." Over the past few weeks, Matilda finished reading Great Expectations, in that edition contained 412 pages. "I loved it. Has Mr. Dickens written any more?" "A great number. Shall I choose you another?" My second task is the play. The title of my play is Native Wisdom, written by N. Yavor Bake. Leon was accompanying a rich tourist who had come on a business trip to Brazil. Unfortunately, this was the kind of man who thought of forests only in terms of wood that could be extracted, and all forest dwellers were stupid and ignorant, just because they could often not read and write. "Oh, Buckman, so what does your rainforest have that is worth seeing?" "Sir, my name is Leon." "No offense, pal, but all you South American tribesmen are called a Buckman, aren't you?" "Not by our friends." Just then, Leon saw a trail off the bank of the river. He and his companion got out of the boat and set off for their journey. Leon bent down, took his shoes off, having them tied by their laces, threw them over his shoulder. Looking at this, his companion laughed and said, "Man, shoes are for your feet, not for carrying over your shoulder. If I were you, I'd wear them." Leon completely ignored the tourists and they set off for the journey. They passed through dark, damp vegetation, appearing to be devoid of any living being. It was only when they came to a point where they had to wade across a stream. Leon bent down, put on his shoes, and his companion laughed again, looking at this. "Man, this takes the cake. If you wade through water with your shoes on, they get wet and spoiled." Again, Leon completely ignored him and they went on for their journey. Leon entered the knee-deep water and soon the tourist screamed and fell into the water with nuts from certain leaves, he said to him, "What the eye can't see is very many issues. What the eye can see is very don't issues. It's not my shoes that I'm worried about. It's my feet. My third task is my poem. The title of my poem is The Cookie Thief, written by Valerie Cox. A woman was waiting at an airport one night with several long hours before her flight. She hunted for a book at the airport shop, bought a bag of cookies and found a place to drop. She was engrossed in a book but happened to see that the man beside her, as bold as could be, grabbed a cookie or two from the bag between, which she tried to ignore to avoid a scene. She read, munched cookies and watched the clock as this gusty cookie thief diminished her stock. She was getting more irritated as the minutes ticked by, thinking if I wasn't so nice, I'd blacken his eye. With each cookie she took, he took one too. When only one was left, she'd wonder what he'd do. With a smile on his face and a nervous laugh, he took the last cookie and broke it in half. He offered her half as he ate the other. She snatched it from him and thought, "Oh brother, this guy has some nerve and he's also rude. Why didn't he even show any gratitude?" She had never known that she had been so galled and sighed with relief when a flight was called. She gathered her belongings and headed towards the gate, refusing to look back at the tearing ingrate. She boarded the plane and sank in her seat and sought out her book, which was almost complete. As she reached in her baggage, she gasped with surprise. There was a bag of cookies in front of her eyes. "If mine are here," she moaned with despair. Then the others were his, and he tried to share. Too late to apologize, she realized with grief that she was the rude one, the ingrate, the thief. My fourth task is sight reading. The Lost Prince by Frances Hodgson Burnett. There are many dreary and dingy rows of ugly houses in certain parts of London, but there certainly could not be any row more ugly or dingier than Philibert Place. There were stories that had once stood more attractive, but that had been so long ago that no one even remembered the time. It had been stood back in its gloomy, narrow strips of uncared for, smoky gardens, whose broken iron railings were supposed to protect it from the surging traffic of a road which was always roaring with the rattle of buses, cabs and vans and the passing of people who were shabbily dressed and looked as if they were either going to hard work or coming from it, or hurrying to see if they could find some of it to keep themselves from going hungry. The brick fronts of the houses were blackened with smoke. Their windows were nearly all dirty and hung with dingy curtains, or some of them hadn't curtains at all. The strips of ground which had once been intended to grow flowers in had been trodden down into bare earth, in which even weeds had forgotten to grow. One of them was used as a stone cutter yard, and cheap monuments, crosses and slates were set out for sale, bearing inscriptions beginning with "Scare to the memory of." Another had piles of old lumber in it. Another exhibited second-hand furniture, chairs with unsteady legs, sofas with horsehair stuffing bulging out of holes in their covering, mirrors with blotches or cracks in them, and the insides of houses were as gloomy as outside. They were all exactly alike. My fifth task is reflection.
How do you feel your performance went?
I am assertive and confident with my performances went well, and I am 100% sure that all of my classmates have given their best too.
Talk about how the skill you worked on preparing for today helped your performance.
I added voice modulation where I was speaking about Matilda, where I was speaking about the tourist, Mrs. Phelps and Leon. I also added voice modulation when the woman found out that she had been the one who was the thief. She had been the one who had been stealing the cookies. I also added expressions, and I also worked on giving actions and also demonstrating the feelings of the character.
What did you consider to be the funniest or most dramatic moment in your pieces? What vocal or physical skill did you use to show that to be the audience?
The poem Cookie Thief, written by Valerie Cox. When the woman had already boarded the plane and she was almost grabbing her book, when she saw that the bag of cookies, which was her, and she saw it in front of her eyes, she gasped, she moaned, she soon realized the bitter truth that it was her who had been the thief. She was the ingrate, she was the rude one. She was all along criticizing that man, and she never knew that she was the one, she was the thief. I added a lot of expressions because I'm sure that even you would have been feeling so bad and so awkward. It would be so embarrassing for you to find out that, oh my god, this happened and I was the thief and I was eating from the stranger's bag. Thank you.